So we prayed, and the staff was praying last year about a theme for this coming year. And I kept coming back around to this idea of resilience. And there's a lot of things that have led to this. A lot of reports I've been reading. Some of you know there was a book that came out. I don't know how long ago that book came out, The Anxious Generation. Really, really harsh look at kind of our culture and what's been happening. There's a book that John Eldredge wrote back in 2022, and I just discovered it because Debbie just made me aware of it. So I got it Friday, and I'm halfway through it. Resilient, where he is unpacking some of that stuff. And I just really felt like that God would have us explore this idea this year of resilience. So this is not going to be an hour lecture up here this morning, but we just wanted to start the conversation this way so that we can start bantering about it. Last year, we talked about discernment all year. It's important to remember, just because the discernment theme is over, we don't leave discernment behind. There's going to be a lot of conversations this year as we talk about what it means to be resilient, that you will have to discern before God what He's inviting you into. I did something last week I don't do very often. Most of you know I'm a technology buff. I'm an early adopter. I love all kinds of things. All of my little accounts are still out there somewhere, but I just took all social media off my phone. I just got rid of it in a fit of just finally realizing I can't keep doing this. And now it doesn't mean I don't check it ever, but I don't carry it with me. And it's amazing in the week since I've done that what it's doing to my own soul. So we don't leave discernment behind. We're going to keep pushing forward. And a core passage for us this year, if you want to keep reading it over and over, is going to be Psalm 1. Just that the psalmist talking about what it means to thrive, to be that tree. I love this little illustration. That be that tree planted on the river bank with the right amount of water, where the leaves are always growing. Now, the interesting thing is, Jesus said, I'm coming so you can have this life, this abundant life. My yoke is light. And then James comes around and he says, well, consider it pure joy when you face tribulation. So there is this tension that we live with. Do you not agree with me? There's a tension that is talked about in the scriptures, that we're supposed to have this life in us, and yet this world is constantly in turmoil and chaos. And I know one of the things Debbie and I keep talking about is why are we even going to talk about resilience this year? Why is this an issue? And I think in part it's because of how we define the things that are happening around us. Are they happening to us, or are they happening for us? Is there something God can use, even though He may not have caused what is happening in the world? You understand, God doesn't cause that chaos that's happening around us, but He can use it for us. That's His promise. So we're gonna dive into this idea of resilience. And I told Debbie, I said, I want to read this one illustration out of the book first, because I thought it was fantastic. Eldredge starts his book by talking about camels, which is fascinating. He said, camels have an Achilles heel. I didn't know this. This is where we'll begin. They have a vulnerability that is hidden by their legendary resilience. These famous ships of the desert have been crossing the dune seas since before the time of Abraham. The stamina and strength of a camel is truly impressive. They can carry heavy loads across leagues of burning desert, hot sand, going without water for weeks, while their human companions die of thirst. But the treacherous thing about camels is that they'll walk 1,000 miles with seemingly endless endurance, giving you little indication they are about to collapse. They can walk 1,000 miles, suddenly kneel down and die. They are that resilient. They have this resolve, this thing in them that can push them. You and I have been talking a little bit about human tendency. And for several years now, one of our big conversations is around the autonomous life. I told her I was going to put her on the spot a couple times. Speak into this a little bit, because I love, with Debbie's background in her study in formation at Talbot, I love some of the perspectives she brings. As I could sit here and I'm going to give you illustrations. You know this. Things were happening before 2020 that were already bad in your life, right? Finances were already tight around the world, right? We're moving at a fast pace. Social media is in us to the point that we think we're like God, where we actually need to know everything that's going on, which I've said for years is not healthy. There's a division already that was occurring before 2020, and then it's like COVID got dropped into this world of exhaustion, and we kind of did what the camels do. We kind of just bucked up, most of us, and kept going. That's not the healthy way.
Yeah, so I'm kind of stuck on the camel thing.
You gave me the book.
So I have a couple questions. Like, these are my own thoughts. Like, does the camel know it's about to fall over? Like, the people watching the camel don't know. Does the camel know? I think that is a really interesting question for us to ask ourselves. Like, do we even know when we're getting to the point where all of our resilience is gone? Like, what does that feel like to us? Like, is it so, what I used to say when I was in seminary, opaque? Like, is it so clouded for us in our own even understanding of our own selves that we can't tell? We can't tell. I think that's a really interesting question for us when we start this conversation about resilience. Like, do we even know where we are? Where are we right now, today, in our life, this moment on the meter? We talk a lot about having a joy meter. Like, where are we on our resilience meter? Like, are we like over here and it's like we're doing great? We have all the things in our life, all the structures, all the relationships, all the whatever that are sustaining us. Are we somewhere in the middle? Or are we way over here on depleted and we're just not even having that conversation with ourselves? Like, we're not even recognizing.
That is so good. And I think you may want to speak to this too or say something, but I think, when I go back to Psalm 1, he says, "Oh, the joys of those who do not follow the advice of the wicked, or stand with the sinners, or join with the mockers." Depending on the version you're in, you'll often read, "Don't follow, stand, or sit." There's like this little progression going on there. "But they delight in the law of the Lord, meditating on it day and night. They are like trees planted along the riverbank." And I think so oftentimes we don't ask ourselves, I think this is what you're saying, we don't ask ourselves, am I like the tree planted on the riverbank? I spend more time going, well, I gotta not be with the wicked, or not be the sinner, or not sit with the, we look out so much that we don't look inside. And then, like the camel, they don't talk, so I guess they just go because they're asked to go, right? That's what a lot of animals will do. If you have a dog, how many have dogs that you've seen a dog walk up until the day you take them to the vet and they've got some terminal disease? Well, they didn't tell you they had that because they were just pleasing you. They were just trying to keep moving with life. And so I wonder if we sometimes are so focused out there that we don't take that time to look internally.
Yeah, I think one of the things that God has given us as part of our heritage as a human being is the ability to reflect, is the ability to pause and look and awaken to and attend to who we are and where we are in our life. I wonder about camel herders. Like, if there are signs, like if there's if there's a way they see stuff that isn't quite as mysterious to those that actually study camels. I don't know. That's just something to tuck away. We might come back to that. Like, how is Jesus our camel herder? If we're in relationship, I don't know. It's
Are
just
there
struck me.
camel
I'm going to
shepherds?
stick a pin in that, and we're going to come back to that later.
It sounds like there might be camel shepherds. I like that.
I think the point is that as we start this series, we have a chance to locate ourselves. And I think that's important. And I think it will probably go on in the weeks as we go on. We'll discover more about where we are. I was looking at this stuff this week, and honestly, if I was going to assess my own, it's like I feel like the tree that at one time was planted by the water, but has drifted over somewhere else. I think that that's something for me to look at. Like maybe I'm in a rockier, drier soil right now, and that's something for me to pay attention to. Like, how do I move? Or why have I moved? And how do I reorient? What does that process now look for me? Yeah.
Yeah, you're reminding me of even the past year for me. You know, the command to be still and know that I am God. I don't know why reflection is kind of a bad word. We move so fast. There's this sense that I got to keep moving. I got to get it done. I got to get it done. I got to keep rushing. God wants activity in my life. And a couple of times in the last 5 years, this last year being one of them, you know, with my family, you know, because we talk about it. Our daughter's marriage fell apart very quickly a little over a year ago now, and you know, COVID was no fun. But we would tell you in my family this was the worst year of our lives, and I think last week it became real to me. Sue and I had the ability. We were invited to go walk on a beach, which most of you know is a soulful place for me. And in that space, we got time last week just to be together and to have those long conversations that you know, and to go, okay, this last year was horrible. Now where are we? What are the stories? And the fun part for us is after a year we would say was one of the worst of our lives, we have these stories of God being faithfully with us, not letting us collapse. But I think last week was really pivotal in giving us some space to reflect and to get away. Otherwise, you will collapse. Yeah, the elders sent me away in 2021, most of you know, that because I think I was borderline collapsing then after COVID, and I was ready to quit. So perhaps, you know, that's a great question you're asking. You know, where are we, each one of us? That's kind of what I wanted this morning to be about. Where are you? Are you ready to collapse? Are you ready to give up? Is there no hope? If that's what you're feeling, that's a sign. That's something in you need to pay attention to.
Yeah, I think alongside of that is, I think that some of what we're going to explore this year is what are the things that we actually use to keep going in our life, you know, and what is actually the scriptural image of what resilience is. You have some definitions of resilience there.
I do.
Yeah.
You want healthy resilience? Let me
Yeah,
ask you.
yeah.
Let me ask
Go
you.
ahead.
Let me ask you questions first about how you would define resilience. How would you define it? Right? Like, think for just a second. If I was to just walk up to you, sit down, we start having a conversation, and these are the words that come out of a lot of definitions: rugged, Does that ring true? Rugged, in control, achieving against all odds, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. That tends to be the idea. Anybody throw anything else out? Anybody think of anything? What came to mind? Tenacity. Get it done. Hang in there. Long lasting what was the other one? Flexibility.
I'm visualizing one of those little plastic things that you can punch and it goes down and bounces right back.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Image that shows me resilience on the part.
Yeah. And some of these are great. You guys are coming up with great images. Some of these are really great images, but there is something more to it. There has to be something more than just bouncing back. Because again, the camel can bounce back seemingly up until the point the camel can no longer bounce back. And I think that's part of our issues. Healthy resilience, I found what I liked this definition, it's rather long, is the capacity to adapt positively in the face of adversity, trauma, or tragedy. It's not about avoiding hardships or pretending everything is going to be okay when it is not. Instead, resilience is about overcoming life's challenges and emerging stronger, wiser, and more capable in our walk with God and others. Eldridge will say in the book, he says, security is not found in the absence of danger, but in the presence of Jesus. Security is not found in the absence of danger, but in the presence of Jesus. And I just wonder sometimes if we have this idea of resilience that doesn't involve Jesus. It just involves me getting it done. That tenacity is, and perhaps not paying attention to myself in the process, because I'm really good about that. I can work until I lay down. I sat down yesterday in my chair and I fell asleep. I get 4 o'clock. Sue's like, what's wrong? I don't know. My body said, you're done for now, And I don't pay attention to that. If you'd asked me at 3, I would have said, I'm fine. But I sat down and my body just gave out and I wasn't paying attention. So, yeah.
Yeah, so, I think there's this idea that maybe we have a resilience muscle. I don't know. This is coming to me like we have a resilience muscle and we're working it out all the time. We're getting stronger. Like I go to Pilates, and I see changes. I've done Pilates for 2 years now, and I see changes in my body because I work out my muscles regularly. And yet, resilience is a little different than maybe what we imagine it in our minds. Like if we just endure this number of things, then we get really good at enduring. And so, but I think over the course of this year, we're going to find out that it's different than that. Because in the end, what we're being asked to endure keeps growing. We talked earlier this morning about how we are aware of so much more in our lives right now than ever before. We're supposed to be fixing everything. And everything around the world where there is a problem comes to us. And there is this idea where is the end of that? Where is the end? So this, over between Christmas night and January 6th, our house went from 2 people to 8 people. And I quickly realized that just feeding 8 people 3 times a day was like a process of endurance just itself, And I'm like, I didn't have problems for what problems the world had on the internet that day. I just had 8 people I had to keep feeding, And so when we're realistic, we realize how finite we are and how many things we can actually handle. And what are we even supposed to be resilient about? What's on our plate to even be resilient with? Those are huge questions for us in the modern world, and I believe in the contemporary church as well. Because there's people that will tell you every day, you're X, Y, and Z because you're not fixing that problem. But where are we using discernment to figure out what it is we're supposed to even be attending to? in our lives, where we are in our community, in our place in history? These are questions that we need to explore.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that we keep talking about discernment now, because you realize how life just keeps moving forward. There is something to this conversation, because most of us would really like to say, could we just go back to life before COVID? Let's go back to normal. And or you heard the phrase, the good old days.
Or
And-
when it was simple.
Or when it was simple. Maybe two, I don't know.
Choose 400 years ago. I don't know. How many do you want to go back?
And you start to think about it, because I have the same thoughts. Oh my gosh, it was so much easier when. And then you think, but was it? And I keep getting whiplash by the things around me. It's one thing that happened last week that just it's why I finally threw Facebook off. There are two very prominent ministry people that went at each other over an issue, and it was like they were arguing two sides of the same coin. And at the same time, when they're arguing, they're almost saying, you have to believe me, not that person. And that person's saying, well, you have to believe me, not that person. And I'm reading some of this to my wife she's going, but they're both true. And I go, but the insanity of it. And having done 18 years in the youth ministry, we've been talking about this for a long time. We saw this coming, that social media, 24/7 news is not healthy. We can't sustain it. I am not God. I cannot fix everything. It angers me to see the things that are shown on video now for everybody, including our children, to see. And I'm not trying to sound like the old school pastor who's just mad at technology. You guys know me. I love technology, except when it doesn't work. Then I don't like it. But it's just not healthy, right? And so part of this resilience conversation this year is going to be inviting all of us to consider what it is that's coming into our space. And you'll never hear me. I'm not going to say, you got to delete Facebook. I'm never going to tell you that. Maybe you're supposed to be on Facebook. I have a really good friend in ministry, and I swear he writes these things, he throws them out there, and then he has to spend 3 days answering all these questions and comments and, breaking people up in fights. And I'm like, dude, do you have another job? Like, what is going on? I'm not called to that. You want to talk to me? Let's talk. Because I think that's where we're going to solve more issues. I keep going back to the still small voice. Why the still small voice? Because that's where you pay attention, right? When you're straining to hear the whisper, when you're straining to know who God is. Yeah, you can tell I get a little passionate about some of this.
Yeah. Well, this is an exploration. It's an exploration of how do we move? What kinds of structures do we need? I'm not going to give you any answers. I'm just giving you the questions that we're going to explore that help us to stay in the water, that help us to stay by the place where we're going to thrive, where we're going to be okay no matter what comes. And what pulls us out of that? And for every person here, that's a different answer, because we have different structures in our lives and different problems and different temptations. But how do we explore that together? How do we look at that? How do we ask those questions collectively and individually of how can we move toward more resilience? And what does that look like? Maybe for some people that's a 3-step journey, and maybe for other people that's a 12-step journey, because you're over here like the camel about ready to keel over. And how do we walk together, whether it's 3 steps or 1 step or 12 steps, to move toward a more resilient place in our faith, in our bodies, in our souls, in our community. So we don't know what is going to come into Journey in 2026. Maybe there's something coming. I sat and listened to the financial thing, and I thought, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. What if it wasn't wonderful? Would we still be resilient? What if we lost $30,000 this last year? And, where would we be? Like, what is it that causes us to still count it joy when trials come our way? And to say, there's something to endure, but in the end, it leads to stability and, James says, perfection. Like you could become complete. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think that we have to. You all know the image of Sunday mornings. If you're here this morning, you've been to. Okay, so maybe today's your first day in church ever. Good, but you probably have been to church several times, and you have the image. You know the picture of the family that pulls up, and husband and wife, or maybe just friends, but you're in the car, and there's a fight that always erupts on the way to church. But you pull in the church parking lot, and all of a sudden, everybody smiles and everybody's happy, and that's not healthy, right? And I think this is part of the resilience conversation is it's okay to long for things to be good. Like we want relationships to be good, and we want them to be all smiles. But I love Psalm 13. The psalmist says, "Oh Lord, how long will you forget me? Forever?" Like he goes like this. What did you just drop me? Like things aren't good anymore. How long are you going to look the other way? How long must I struggle with the anguish in my soul, with sorrow in my heart every day? How long will my enemy have the upper hand? Turn and answer me, oh my God. Turn and answer me. Like, I love that because there's so much brutal honesty of, I want things to be good. But am I willing to be honest about what I'm really feeling, where I am with internally and with God and with everything around me? And it's just a big conversation. It's a big conversation.
Yeah, and I think following that, the resilience question is like, if it stays bad, how long am I going to last? Like if you're the camel with it and you're not getting replenished and you're feeling all that isolation and inner turmoil, like where's your point where the rope gets so frayed that it just breaks? Are you there right now? And that's okay. I mean, it's okay to the extent that that is a good thing to know. Like that is a safe thing to know because we're going to be here exploring that. And there is ways back.
I sent Debbie an article that had there were 4 crucial reasons that resilience is beneficial, and I liked it because I'm a science guy still, and so I click on the links and I go find then these are legitimate scientific studies, but so this author pulled out actually 3 from scientific studies, and the 4th one was not a scientific study, but you'll see why in a second. The first one says it leads to greater life satisfaction. Your ability to be resilient is going to lead to a greater life satisfaction. So if your resilience starts to wane, if you're at the end of the 1,000 miles like the camel, you may be unaware that you might think, oh, I'm going to sit down and take a nap, but you might collapse instead. If you're just not, because you're just going and going and going, and you don't realize you're not satisfied in what's going on here, and you just drive your life right off the cliff. But this ability to bounce back, as we keep talking about with God in the mix, leads to a different level of satisfaction, and they can measure this. It promotes better mental health. I love in this book, he cites several things that I hadn't even thought about. My wife and I will forever say, what are you doing? Well, I was texting somebody, I forgot who I'm texting. Or, I was going to pick up the phone, I was going to call somebody, or I walked into the room, or I came to tell you something, I don't remember. In this trauma brain, they're now studying post-COVID, saying we don't realize how much of that is going on in the world right now. And we don't realize it, and so we keep just trying to push through it, and a good therapist says you're never going to heal that way. It's amazing. So mental health is a problem when you're not resilient. It is related to long-term success. Why? Well, you're going to stay the course. I love tenacity. My wife is full of tenacity. She gets everything done around the house. But that tenacity has to be a resilient tenacity, a healthy resilience. And if that's in the case, then you can do the long, faithful obedience that we call discipleship. And then the fourth reason that resilience is crucial is it aligns with our faith. It aligns with our faith. Jesus says, I came to bring you life, and oh, by the way, in this world you're going to have troubles. And James says, so count it all joy. If you take any one of those verses, but you take them together and you start to see what the message was, the importance of this ability to be resilient. So, yeah.
I think, I'm thinking about this word endure. Is that a dirty word to you? Sometimes it's like, well, you're just going to have to endure it. How does that hit you? Could endure be a word of blessing? Could it be a word of blessing? That's an interesting thing for us to explore as we look at resilience. Could that be turned upside down and not just be a sentence, in a bad sense of you're sentenced to something bad, Yeah.
Resilience is about overcoming life's challenges and emerging stronger, wiser, and more capable in our walk with God and others.
What would be different in your life right now if you had this true kind of spiritual resilience? What might look different? Sometimes when I think about endure, the color I see is gray. That's kind of a gray thing. What if it was like a blue sky? What if it had hope? What color would hope be to you? Yeah.
That's where we're going this year. We wanted to give you just a high-level conversation to get you thinking about it, and even to allow you, if you say, I've got a question, ask it. Email, text. We love to bring your questions into the conversation as we push through. So the first 3 or 4 weeks here, we're going to be talking at a very high level, and then we're going to jump into some epistles, and we're going to start taking some things apart and looking at it. It's very specific. Not that we're not using scriptures right now, but we're kind of piecemealing some big concepts together, and then we're going to dive into some other conversations. And the whole time asking this question about resilience: where am I? Where is God? How am I doing this year? I do think it's pertinent to our faith and to the kind of people in church we want to become.